welcome back to my channel. For this video we are back on the topic of university. Obviously we are coming up into August now, so there's only about a month or a month and a half before people are starting university for the first time or going back for second and third and fourth years. So I thought I would make a video that kind of follows on from my things I wish I'd known before university. It's just some tips and things that are useful for, moving in, Freshers Week, even if it is a little bit different, and yeah, some things that you'll just find useful throughout the year. There's 10 tips in total. I always love a good round number, so yeah, let's get into it. The first tip I have is any work that's set for before your first lecture or anything that's emailed to you by your tutor or lecturers or anyone, just get it done. I had like the most boring reading to date that I hated, and it was a slug to get through, and I had to do like 2 or 3 pages a day for weeks because I just hated it that much. But get it done. It makes a really good impression on whoever is meeting you or holding your first class if you've done it. And it's probably going to be useful. Ours was like a little introduction to politics, and as much as I hate to say it, it was useful. Also, it's a really good sort of way to understand the work that you'll be doing at uni and what that'll be like. Obviously I hadn't before university done any academic reading like that, so for me, having a little bit of reading set for me was really useful. It taught me a little bit about how long it's going to take me to get through readings. It taught me like what notes I need to take and that kind of thing, and it was just really useful to have that down before Freshers Week. So yeah, I think it's just a good way of setting the tone for the year. It's really useful for your first few classes. So yeah, just do that work that you've probably been putting off. Yeah, just get it done, and yeah, it'll probably be really useful. My second tip is, if you can, get to know your flatmates. I've mentioned before that I couldn't get to know my flatmates until about a week or 2 before Freshers. And even then I think I only met 1 or 2 of them from the group chat. But if you can get to know your flatmates, you probably already will. But if you haven't, please do try. It's just going to make it a lot easier to move in, and especially in Freshers Week when you're all getting to know each other, you're all nervous. Knowing that you've already talked to these people is probably going to like ease the stress a little bit. And if you talk to them early enough on, obviously you might have been able to coordinate what you're getting. Someone's car alarm's going off. If you can and you've talked to them early enough, you'll probably end up like coordinating what you need, like tea towels and things like that. So if you can get to know them early, it'll either ease the stress of moving in, or you'll be able to coordinate what you're buying. Either way, getting to know your flatmates early on is going to be really useful. Number 3 is plan your moving in day as soon as you can. Obviously, I don't know how that's working this year. I don't know if you're moving in all at the same time or on different days for social distancing things. But if you can, and when you do find out when you're moving, plan it as soon as you can, because having that plan down as much as you can is going to take a huge weight off your mind, and you're just less stress to be worrying about if you know when you're setting off, where you're going, that you've got everything. So yeah, if you can, and when you do find out when you're moving in, do plan it as much as you can. Sort of linked to that is make a list of everything you want to take. It's going to be a lot easier for you to pack if you know what you're taking, what you're packing, and you're a lot less likely to forget things. I started the list that I wanted to take like 2 or 3 weeks before I started like moving in. It was just a lot easier, I guess. As I thought of stuff, I could just add it to the list, and then I would make sure it was packed. Start it a couple of weeks early. Obviously you're not going to think of everything in one go. I added things like I said, but yeah, making a list is really useful, and it's a lot easier than just trying to pack things like all up at once. And yeah, the next thing is something that a lot of people do, some don't, and it's learn to cook at least the basics if you're self-catered. Obviously if you are catered for, that's not a problem, but if you're not, you're gonna need to learn how to cook. I'm not saying you need to be Gordon Ramsay or anything, but you're gonna have to know how to cook the basics at least. You know, I'm talking like little things like pasta and rice and things like that. Your life is just gonna be so much easier if you know how to cook them. And if you want to get like a cookbook with recipes in it and stuff, I had one. I didn't personally use it. I stuck to like the same few recipes, and a lot of the stuff I cooked didn't need a recipe. So yeah, I recommend learning to cook at least the basics before you go. The next few tips are more towards like throughout the rest of the year, things that you might need to get like used to, things that are different. The first one is don't be afraid to ask questions. In school and even in college, I was one of those people who would have questions to ask, and I would sit there quietly hoping and praying that somebody else would ask that question so that I didn't have to. But at university, honestly, nobody really cares if you ask a stupid question, and I know I asked questions sometimes that I was a bit nervous about asking, and my lecturers or my seminar tutors would totally answer anything, like any question that you have. They will answer it. They're there to help you. So I know it's not easy to ask questions, especially if you're a bit shy, but like lecturers have office hours, and if you don't want to ask it in front of everybody, use that office hour. Just don't be afraid to ask your lecturers and your tutors for that little bit of extra help if you need it. I found it really useful just to ask questions as soon as it came up, or I would write them down and ask them later on. But definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. Next is that time management is going to become your best friend. Juggling everything from like lectures and seminars and essays and tests and a social life and societies, it's a lot to deal with. It's a skill that you're going to need to get to grips with is time management, definitely. Obviously, you're going to have a time set aside when you study and when you are doing essays and writing up notes, and there is just a lot to juggle with at university, so getting to grips with the skill of time management is kind of important, and it's important that you do it early on as well. Obviously, a little bit of it will come naturally, but in the first sort of term, I think you're really going to have to push learning how to manage your time effectively, especially when it comes to essays, because you might end up with like essays for different subjects due the same week, and then you've really pushed for time for like readings and little extra bits that you have to do. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting used to setting your time aside quite early on. Something that's going to help with that, and is my next tip, is buy a planner or a journal, or if you're digital, find a good app or whatever is going to help you stay organised. Just do it. I used Google Calendar and just an academic journal, but I ended up not really using the academic journal. Whatever is best for you, just do it like from the beginning. That's my number one tip. Consistency is really important, but also remember that if it's not working for you, don't stick to it. Like, I really didn't like using the online calendar at first, so I didn't use it. I changed to an academic journal, then that didn't work for me, and it was just a bit all over the place. But first year is the time to like find what works for you, so if something doesn't work, don't be afraid to change it up a little bit. But I definitely recommend getting a planner. It's so useful to see all of your tasks that you have to do, all of your deadlines, just having them in front of you and like tangible. It's just a lot easier to set time aside and think about when you have to be doing stuff. I said a lot in this video about doing things early on, and one thing that I definitely recommend you do early on, even if you do nothing else early on, is pick a note-taking method. I had 2 notebooks that I took notes in. I had one that had, I think they're called project books, the one with the like multiple sections in. I just took that to every lecture with me, and I took all of my notes in them. They were the scruffiest notes you've ever seen, and I never used them for revision whatsoever. Then after my lecture, sometimes maybe the day after, depending on how I was feeling, I tried to do it straight after my lecture. I would copy them up into my other notebooks that I had. I had one for each subject, and here I'd just write up those lecture notes neatly. I then ended up changing my method. I think about 2 weeks into second term, I got an iPad, and I decided that I wanted to take my notes digitally because of how time consuming I found it was to write up my notes like twice essentially. So I changed to writing my notes on my iPad. and I think that's the way I'm going to stick with it. I really enjoy it. I don't have to copy up my notes twice, but it was such a nightmare to have my notes in different places. I didn't want to write up my notes onto my iPad just because it would have taken so much time, but having my notes in two places was a complete nightmare. So yeah, early on, figure out what works for you as early as possible. If you do like a week or two of lectures, like handwriting your notes, you find it doesn't work for you, try typing them up, try an iPad, try whatever you can, and just stick with a method as early as possible. My final tip is to not freak out and panic if you don't do so well or you feel like you're struggling in first year. It's such a massive leap from like sixth form and college up to university, and honestly it's perfectly normal to feel overwhelmed. You are, like I've said before, I think, you know, you're learning an entire new style of writing, and you know there's like the knowledge like you're getting to grips with is a lot harder than what you've done before. So don't freak out if like your first essay isn't like the best one that you write. Mine was below what I normally got that year. Just don't freak out, and yeah, just take your time. If you feel like you're struggling, talk to someone. Don't just sit there and suffer and think that it'll get better. Just ask someone for help, and like everyone is there to help you. I said it before when I was talking about asking questions. People are genuinely there to help you out. So if you do feel like you're struggling, don't feel like you're the only one. I can guarantee somebody else is feeling like they're struggling too. So yeah, don't freak out too much. This is sort of like a little extra point, but I'm just going to use it to round off the video, and that's just enjoy it. Just enjoy the time. Obviously it could be a little bit different this year because social distancing is in place and the majority of lectures and seminars and things are looking like they're going to be online, but I am missing like literally every bit of university life at the minute. So just like relax and don't stress out too much over it and just enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to give my little 10 tips that I'd give to freshers. If you did enjoy it, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.